On this Sunday, the feast of the conception of the Forerunner falls. The Forerunner is venerated many times through the year. His beheading, his conception, his birth, the baptism of the Lord, and other times. And the beheading, which we celebrated not that long ago, as you know, I said to you that it was all due to a dance of an ungodly young woman who, to whom the king at that time, Herod, promised half his kingdom if she would dance for him. Following this sort of thing, we have to be aware of some of the things which we experience in our daily lives, particularly with things like music, sounds, and such things. Those of you who have some scientific background will realize that all material substances have a vibrational frequency associated with them. And we can see this, for example, when some singers who have the ability to hit a high pitch can actually shatter a wine glass or something like this, because their sound matches the pitch of that wine glass, which starts to vibrate and vibrate so violently that it shatters. Overall, the whole earth in general has this vibrational average, which is not holy, is not uplifting, because the world is in a state of fall, state of decay. When you hear sort of boogie-woogie type beats, rock and roll, all those sorts of things, and you see little children jump out and they start dancing to those beats without any instruction whatsoever. What's happening here? Well, that beat is so common to our bodily existence that it takes no effort at all to get in tune with it. And hence you can see that the innocent little children jump out and start dancing, carrying on about that beat as if it was nothing. Over the periods when Christianity came into the world, there was a refinement. There was a refinement in language, speech, writing, reading, music, all the sort of material things that are needed for our existence. And it culminated basically towards the end of the 19th century, when the classical world started to be destroyed in the 20th century. And the music which people used to listen to, and which was called the pinnacle of civilization, composers like Mozart and Bach and others of that caliber, was sort of put aside, and instead of that entered this boogie-woogie beat, essentially from the unenlightened peoples of Africa and other wild places in the world. Today, it's been so adopted throughout the Western societies that it's really not known to young people that have come into the world, because that's all they hear. You go into a supermarket, what are you hearing? You're not hearing Bach, you're hearing boogie-woogie beats. It's irritating. Why is it irritating? To most people, it's not. Part of our interior warfare is to train our souls out of that boogie-woogie vibration of the world. It takes an effort. The late and blessed Father Seraphim Rose had a whole series of lectures about this. And he said that he had to train himself out of that common, popular music that we find going through radios and televisions and whatever, by listening to classical music, possibly folk music first, then classical. And then he said, but, after I had a dose of that, and after I had the ability to like that and reject all those other sounds which became noise to me, he found the church chants, which are the highest form of musical expression. And he said that after that, I gave up listening to even classical music at that point because there was something higher than that. Now, to some of you, that may seem strange because as I was giving a talk once to the Antiochian youth, one lady who was a musician stood up and said, but music is just octaves. I said, no, it's not just octaves. That might be the way it's divided up and written, but it is an entity that bypasses the mind. When I speak to you, you can switch yourself off. You can daydream and whatever. But if some sound is being projected, it goes straight into your heart, into your soul, and you can't switch it off. You see? That's why it's so important to understand this musical phenomena and how these vibrations affect us, because it leads to unrighteousness in the end. Have a look at the places just in the West where all sorts of sinful acts are committed. It's always in the presence of these heavy musical beats, orgies, jumping around, people letting themselves go to this, which is essentially demonically inspired sounds. That's what it is. And to train yourself out of that, it's not really that hard, but it takes an effort. It takes an effort. Like Father Seraphim said, you begin by listening to folk songs, then change it into classical music. I mean, Bach wrote hundreds of pieces, hundreds. Some very good. He wasn't an Orthodox Christian, but nevertheless, he was a Christian. His material, for example, the Messiah is, Handel's Messiah is, for example, an incredibly fantastic piece, which is totally biblically based. All the singing in that is from the Psalms and from the New Testament. And whilst that inspires us to seek the highest virtues in those sort of sounds, the highest ones, of course, are the church chants, which is in a different category altogether. A lot of those chants were given to us through angelic inspiration. Angels actually came and gave us those sorts of songs. The saints that have had heavenly visitations and have come back to earth, when asked what did they see, what they hear, said they can't put into words. What is it? We can't put into words what we saw. We can't put into words what we heard, because it was so much above our experiences here. So evidently there is a sound or sounds which are manifested from the heavenly realm, which exalt the heart to Christ, to God. And therefore, it is part of our duties in this life, in our struggles, to fix up our souls not only in thoughts and feelings, but in watching where those feelings come from, whether they be through other people's words or situations in their life, or through musicals, through noises. When you train yourself out of the boogie-woogies of the vibrational world as it is now, you'll find that going into a supermarket and hearing all that things is actually irritating. It's sort of, can't get out of here fast enough. I hate this noise. Why do they put it on? There's thousands and thousands of good sounds that they can use, and yet they put on the worst thing they can find. Obviously, some sort of plot going on there to deliver us out of holiness and into the dregs of Hades. God help us with this, and through the prayers of the Holy Forerunner, who suffered in the hands of that by being beheaded, may we be delivered from that and understand how these things affect the souls of us, and therefore of our striving for the kingdom of heaven. Because it certainly is an awesome thing, and it's needful for young people especially, because they're the ones that are most exposed to this. When they hear these new sounds, there are very strong feelings which generate in them, which sort of come from nowhere. You can't understand, why am I feeling these sorts of things when I hear this? But those feelings are not necessarily unto holiness. God help us, preserve us, and protect us in these things, and give us strength to understand the truth of the things that arise around the world today.